After the death of Theodosius the Great, the Roman Empire was divided, and the decline of the western half of it could not be swifter. Swifter even than the barbarian hordes swarming into the empire, too numerous to count in their tribes, former guns for hire turning on the Romans. Swifter than the minds of the stupid rulers, who killed their best men because they were jealous of them. Swifter than the continual degradation of the Roman army and the loss of the territories that had once been part of the Western Roman Empire. Swifter than the power assumed by these barbarians as they sacked the city. Swifter than the decay of Roman morals, infrastructure, and law. Swifter than the fires that burned through the sackings of Rome in 410 and 457. Finally, in 476, Romulus Augustulus, the last Roman emperor, was deposed, the Goths and King Odoacer gaining control over Augustulus and the Roman throne. However, they did not put a new emperor in the throne, and soon Odoacer was deposed by Theodoric, who swore allegiance to the Byzantines, the Eastern Roman Empire, that not only survived, but would thrive. It did not have to deal with the heavy incursions comparable to the Western Roman Empire. It did not have to deal with barbarian invasions. In fact, the Eastern Roman Empire was in the midst of an economic boom, and although they did not see themselves as Byzantines, they spoke Greek. They embraced the philosophy of the ancient Greeks. They relied on the breadbaskets of Egypt and North Africa. Their armies were made of natural-born citizens, and their forces were strong and powerful, as were their rulers, especially Justinian the Great. Justinian, perhaps the greatest Byzantine emperor ever, is perhaps also the last true Roman emperor, the last emperor to sit upon the precipice of controlling both the West and the East, the emperor who continued the elevation of Constantinople from an old Greek town into the new Rome, into the central city of the world, the Justinian who put the church above everything, except perhaps himself. But some piety must remain. After all, it's hard to become a saint. But ironically, that saintly man relied on an ex-burlesque prostitute, his wife Theodora, one of the most cunning, beautiful, and intelligent women, not just of that period, but of any period in history, to be his anchor and his support. She guided him, advised him, and supported him in everything he did, and at his darkest moment, she was there for him. Without her, his glorious 38-year reign might have ended in total tragedy in just 5. When the Nika riots hit the Hippodrome in Constantinople in 532, the riots soon turned to revolution, with the crowds calling for the blood of the emperor who was mistreating them. It was Theodora who encouraged Justinian not to flee, but to put down the revolt violently and ruthlessly, using his best general and second-best advisor, Belisarius, to do so. 30,000 were killed, but Justinian stabilized his hold on the empire. As he implemented a new law code that would set the legal bar high for the next 8 centuries, he utilized Belisarius to his best advantage, to hammer the barbarians. Belisarius reconquered large swaths of the Western Roman Empire and nearly doubled the size of the Byzantines. Without Belisarius and Justinian trusting him, the Byzantine Empire would not have ascended to such grandeur in the middle of the 6th century. All the while, Justinian and Theodora presided over a powerful court full of splendor and wealth. And as the booty and loot of the campaigns came in, they were quickly dispensed to pay for more war and for the building of Constantinople, as Justinian wanted to exceed even Constantine's great building projects in the city upon the sea. His greatest contribution to the city is perhaps one of the most famous symbols in all of the world, the Hagia Sophia. Today a mosque, it was originally designed as a church, Holy Wisdom, and is one of the most lavish and beautiful cathedrals in all the world, with its high vaults and beautiful domes, inviting lights, and amazing displays. A cathedral this grand must have cost a pretty penny, and it did, and it took over 5 years to complete, and Justinian made sure to give credit to where credit was due and honor the Lord. But he also made sure in his hubris to remind the Lord who had built the cathedral, even in its mosaics. Beautiful and impressive to this day, the cathedral is either the last great bit of Roman architecture or the first great medieval cathedral. He had built like Hadrian, conquered like Trajan, governed and reformed like Augustus. He had seemingly brought Rome back from the dead, and nothing could stand in his way, even his gross spending habits. Nothing stood in his way, except nature. The Justinian plague, the first recorded pandemic in all of history, would take the lives of 15 and 100 million people between 541 and 549. It would even threaten the life of the emperor, who would barely survive, becoming a shell of his former self, weak and paranoid in his later years. Meanwhile, his greatest strength, Theodora, died of cancer. The transformative reign would come to an end with not a bang, but a whimper. His tax base and population depleted, his manpower sorely inadequate to hold on to his territories, and his own personal strength depleted, Justinian would spend the last 15 years of his reign in decline, with his empire also in decline. He would die at the age of 83 after nearly 40 years on the throne, and despite this weak ending, it does not take away from the grandeur and the splendor of Justinian, his power, his despotism, his ability to control, his ability to build and conquer. All of this makes him, as an emperor, less a Byzantine and more a Roman.